Hello, my name's Kelly. I am a CBT therapist and forensic psychologist. And today I want to further explore with you if violence online, that's in social media or also in other media outlets such as TV and movies, that promotes violence, can that influence the likelihood of someone engaging in violence in real life or in person? So to start off with, it's looking at, does violence in the media actually promote more violence? So what we know is that repeated exposure to violence in the media, whatever form that may be, is widely known to have a desensitizing effect on children, on young people, as well as adults. And this is because having the sight of violence normalized. Because it becomes normalised, we become desensitised to it. It becomes less upsetting. And because of that, we can then also experience a lack of empathy, and that can develop through the kind of the watching it and it being around us more. And this was evidenced by a 30-year study at the University of Michigan. And they revealed that there was a 40% decline in empathy among American college students with the increase of social media. So there was a decline in 40% of the empathy after the popularity of social media and how that's catapulted into our world. Because of this, that lack of empathy, there is the potential for increase in violence. And this can be found through a range of different mechanisms. So it can cause increased cruelty. It can decrease the concern that an individual has about the feelings or the well-being of other people. Having that decreased empathy can also increase the propensity for an individual to engage in bullying behaviour. And it can also decrease the likelihood of an individual wanting or feeling that they want to help other people, which I think is really interesting, seeing how social media has become more popular in recent years and how that can have that impact in all of those different areas. And if we're specifically considering social media and the online world, then we have the online disinhibition effect. So what this means is that the dynamics of interacting on social media specifically can lead to users to express themselves in ways that they would not consider in other worlds that they live in, or in offline interactions. And because of that some users will behave in an openly hostile manner that is sometimes really out of character for their offline personas. So they can behave in a hostile manner online, and that doesn't fit with who they are offline. And while some people online are more likely to overshare information about themselves, their feelings, again, that they may not do offline. So their online and offline personas aren't really matching, and that's known as the online disinhibition effect. So that is because when we're online, our inhibitions are lowered, and they're lowered due to an increased feeling of anonymity, invisibility, and because of that, feelings of reduced accountability in the online sphere and interactions that happen in that online sphere. And as you could imagine, this could lead to cyberbullying and to intense arguments online. However, those onlines could lead to in-face violence or arguments or confrontations. However, and it's a big however, what leads a person to actually be violent is a really complicated process that isn't entirely understood. There isn't a clear A to B, and it's rarely driven by just one thing. So rather than thinking of any one thing having a direct effect on someone's likelihood or someone's behaviour, obviously including that behaviour to be violent, it's better to think of things in terms of risk factors, and that will be a number of them that could impact upon someone's behaviour. And there will be a variety of different contributing forces or characteristics that come together to create almost like the perfect storm, so to speak, or that worst case scenario. And they're individual. And that perfect storm or that worst case scenario is what may actually lead someone to becoming violent. And although social scientists have studied dangerousness for many, many years, there continues to be a lack of one agreed definition. But one thing they can agree on is that it's almost impossible to predict who will be violent, who will not be violent, and when that will occur. However, there are some things that may increase someone's likelihood of becoming or behaving violent, but there are still no kind of clear causation, so guarantees that violence will actually occur because someone is experiencing those risk factors. So what are these factors and how can they contribute to violence? So if we look at in research, we can see that the most common are history of child abuse, current substance abuse difficulties, maybe some sort of psychiatric disorder. But this is particularly when someone has been diagnosed with a disorder and maybe they aren't taking the medication as prescribed, so people that have actually been prescribed, or they'll say they're not engaging in any sort of therapeutic intervention if that's what's recommended. But although the vast majority of people who were abused as children, who have substance misuse difficulties and who have some sort of psychological problem, they don't act violent. But when we look at the small number of people who do perpetrate really horrific acts, those themes do tend to come up. But again, it's not a causation. It's not to say that everyone who's been through that is going to behave violently, sometimes quite the opposite. However, there are also other reasons why people do become violent. Peer pressure can also be a massive factor in someone actually committing violence. And if you think online, there is, even though it's online, there still is that peer pressure. That paired with the online disinhibition effect could also be another sort of perfect storm that's kind of happening online. So it's not to say that the peer pressure has to be in person, although this area is continued to be researched as we speak. But people who might not have a history of violence could sometimes they get caught up in the emotion and of the moment. And this is kind of, again, if we're thinking in person, but also online. So if they're in person, they could get caught up in the moment and become directly violent towards others by participating in violent acts, or it could be them indirectly by watching others engage in violent acts and cheering them on, or it could be by verbalizing those violent acts again, or watching people being bullied or watching people being targeted online, but not actually kind of, again, egging them on, but not really doing it themselves. Stress is another factor that, when built over time, could push someone to that brink of desperation. And stress it could just be one extreme stressor, such as maybe the death of someone that was really important to an individual. But it could also be less extreme but still significant stressors, such as unemployment, homelessness, or kind of an unexpected personal rejection or some change within their life. And because of this, researchers in the field of dangerousness and kind of thinking if someone is likely or not likely to be violent, but in terms of dangerousness, the researchers pretty much agree that the best predictor of future behaviour is past behaviour. Although that past behaviour is always a first behaviour at one point. But therefore, so when we're looking at someone's likelihood to engage in violence, if someone already has an established pattern of violence, arguably they're more likely to perpetrate violence in the future. But the exact date, time, and kind of consequence of that, can it be predicted? Of course not. But some people can say with reasonable certainty that if someone has been through kind of has got those risk factors, has behaved violently in the past, and there's no interventions that they've engaged in to reduce the possibility of its occurrence of violence, then that can be the kind of the best predictor. But is it a predictor for everyone? No. But it's something that kind of that most researchers will call upon and reflect upon when we're kind of thinking about violence. So I hope that kind of gives you a bit of a snapshot. It's an area that is continued to be researched and we still don't know everything about it. But I hope you found that helpful and that's kind of maybe piqued your interest a little bit. I hope you enjoyed it, and please check out my other videos and like and subscribe. Thank you.